name's David Pankratz, and I am the technical production assistant here at Linus Media Group. I use test benches regularly, everything from cardboard boxes to something a little bit more sophisticated. That is why I am really excited to show you this. The Der8enchtable. This is a product that was developed by Thermal Grizzly Der8enchtable in conjunction with Elmer Labs to bring the bench table into 2026 to modernize the platform. Let's take a look. The thing that excites me most is the potential versatility of this platform and what you can do with it versus other benches. Taking a look at this top piece is already so different from what you would typically see in a bench. I've got another one here that's just a regular aluminum plate. You've got all of your standoffs and everything, but it's nothing like what you've got here. We've got spots for some SATA drives, we've got fan headers, SD card readers, we've got more fan control over here, and of course, there's RGB that goes around the whole thing. We have these brackets here that look like they're for mounting an AIO onto the back of the bench. And we have this box, nice little Thermal Grizzly logo on it, with screws. These look to be different types of screws, but there's no labeling on them. That may be a challenge for some people if you don't know what you're looking at. It is nice to see, however, that they include some Allen keys. And here, I believe we have the main feet for the bench itself and a few more accessory pieces. These guys are your PSU mounts, and this guy is an AIB securing bracket. Oh, these are little plastic pieces for the bottom of your feet so that you don't have just metal. And in case you didn't catch it before, we've got this bag full of cables to hook it up to whatever platform you're going to be testing with. Nice, they include some Velcro strapping for you too. It can get pretty messy when you've got a whole bunch of power supply wires running all over the place with these open test benches. All right, time to put this thing together. But first, a word from our sponsor.
MASA. Looking for an alternative snack than your usual pantry go-tos? Most of the chips that you are used to eating are cooked in seed oils. MASA wanted to do something different, so they opted to make their chips in beef tallow. Their goal is to create a crunchier, more satisfying chip than your standard off-the-shelf options. It's that perfect pairing for that bowl of salsa you have. Plus, they come in some amazing flavors like lime, churro, or just plain old delicious salted. Ready to give MASA a try? Go to masachips.com/SC and use code SC for 25% off your first order.
Wow, there are a lot of different little bits that without the manual, you would really struggle to put this together for a first time. First thing here we're installing is the AIB bracket. There were a couple of screws and nuts pre-installed, but that may have just been because Labs was playing with this first. So far, the instructions are descriptive, as you would expect from a German product, but there is a lot of different types of fasteners here. I'm going to take an educated guess that these are the right ones, but we'll see. While they do include these handy Allen keys, I'm going to use one of our precision screwdrivers because it's a little easier to get around with. It's all coming together. Again, I mean, I'm like 2 steps into this, and having labels on bags would have been really nice. This is starting to look more like a bench now. Now, where's my PSU bracket? This one I am going to have to use the Allen key for because there's not enough clearance to get in here with the screwdriver. I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong because I've got holes that don't line up. If you look at the schematics very closely, it is clear. This is my bad. Have some holes, and they're supposed to be on that side of the board because this guy does a little zigzag. It's on the correct side here, but we need to flip everything around. Now that we've got things flipped around, we're back on track and this is lining up. There are so many spots on here where it feels like they have doubled up the amount of screws that you would normally see on something like this. On each corner, you've got 2 screws holding feet in. Why? Because one would let you pivot it, but once you've got the other side in, that's not a problem. More than what I would have typically done. Now that I'm this far into the instructions, I see that they have a compact configuration as well, where instead of having these large metal legs on the bottom, you can actually just attach the feet straight to the bottom of the board here. but you don't have a spot to mount your power supply. This is pretty cool. All of these little cutouts that they have on the board are for you to thread the Velcro strap through and then build your own kind of cable management through these holes. For today, I don't think that we need to put that in there, but it's something super handy. Now is the point where if you are going to load this thing up with a drive, you're going to want to get it installed because your motherboard is going to cover up those spots in just a moment. It's just that easy. I actually had a PC case that had some SATA ports exposed kind of like this, right at the very top of the case to be able to just load drives in and out. It was super, super handy for the time. Now would be a great time to get a look at some of the side-mounted ports that we have all the way around the board here. We have a bank of 3 fan headers right here that you can control either with this switch, or you can just have it connected directly to the board and have the board control the fans for you. We have a USB header to go to your motherboard for a bunch of the other bits that we're going to look at here. A reset switch, a power switch, the 2 ports so that you can get those to the board. We have our SD cards over here, our SATA ports for our 2 drive bays over here. We have 2 USB Type A ports here, and 2 more over here, as well as a couple of USB-C ports over here. One thing that's worth noting is that all of these USB ports are USB 2.0 only. Having something with USB 3 support would be a nice addition. 2 is pretty slow for a lot of devices these days. We have another set of fan headers over here, as well as a spot that they call the pump zone. The pump zone has more amperage per header so that you don't have to worry about your pump overdrawing and burning circuits out. Again, we can control all of these with switches, or you can just set it to external and have your motherboard control those. We've got a PCI Express 6-pin to deliver power to all of the things that we just talked about, as well as a bit more in terms of your fans. Here is your external fan hookup that goes to your motherboard, and the all-important RGB. Now, we're gonna grab a board and stick it on top. This is just the board that I use at my desk for doing a bunch of testing as I need it. So it is nothing special, but it is a full-size ATX board and it fits. It's worth noting that the bench does come preset up to use a full-size ATX board, but you can move those standoffs around as you see fit. So if you've got an MATX board or an ITX board, they will fit here too. Now, if you're just keeping your bench at your desk, this next step may not be necessary, but if you're gonna move it around, they do include these little barrel guys that go on top of the standoffs so that you don't have to worry about your board falling out. A downside to these barrel nuts that they've chosen to use is this is not a super common fastener, so if you lose these, you're gonna be having a hard time trying to find some replacements. So now that we got those guys on there, our motherboard's not going anywhere. Let's throw a power supply in here. This is just the power supply that I use on my test bench, so I've got a bunch of cables pre-installed for whatever I would need. I must say that I don't like loading this one in as much as some of the other benches I've used, but it does work. It does get the job done. Guess what? Yet another type of screw. While I'm connecting this RGB cable, I am noticing that the one they include is fairly short, which is nice when you have the header right at the very top of the board like this one. I have seen some boards where they don't have the RGB connector there though, and it's somewhere down at the bottom here where this is not going to be long enough. USB, on the other hand, I'm not nearly as concerned about. Pretty much every board has some USB 2 headers right on the bottom. With how the rest of this product was designed, I'm almost surprised that these little jumper cables they have for power and reset don't have power and reset labeled on them. You wouldn't want to use the wrong one. Just kidding, there is no wrong one. I'm not going to go through and mount the entire AIO on here, but you can see this is where it would go. And there you have it, our assembled test bench with all of our hardware in place. Now we get to turn it on and see what that RGB looks like. It definitely lights up. Well, I think what's happening with the rainbow effect is you're getting weird bleed through different parts of the diffusion. If you had this set up as just one color, it would probably look a lot better. Right now, this rainbow is not doing it though. Having all of these integrated features are pretty cool. They are a bit niche in terms of how you would be using them. You'd have to be going and swapping out kind of your main hardware up top fairly frequently for you to get the benefits out of them. And the things like the dedicated fan control would be useful for some people's testing. I was more excited about the product before going through the process of building it. One of the things that was frustrating was the sheer amount of different types of screws that we had to use throughout the process. And on top of that, there's no place to put some of the screws that you would need when you're swapping hardware in and out, such as these barrel nuts on the motherboard or these screws right here. I guess you could have them seated in here while you're not using them. For comparison, here's the Streacom BC1. This is the one that I use on a daily basis at my desk. The things that I was calling out in terms of the screw storage, you can see that they just have all of the screws in spots along the board itself. It fits super nicely, just all integrated so that you don't end up losing these things and having to go track them down. The motherboard standoffs on this one as well, you get the option for these kind of sprung ones where you have a little bit of tension holding the board in place if you're just letting it sit there. Or you can pull out one of these other guys that sit flush at the same height, and you can put a screw into the top there. All of the screws that they have are nice and chunky thumb screws as well. These are improvements I could see integrating into the Der8enchtable, because you've got a lot of space that you could be storing things all the way down the legs, just like the Streacom one does. And having thumb screws would be great, so you don't have to be using an Allen key or a screwdriver to be getting a bunch of these parts in and out. Day to day, I think I would gravitate towards this guy more, even though from a techie perspective, this one's really cool. One thing that I will say I do like more on this bench from a purely mechanical design standpoint is the AIO mount here. The AIO mounts for this guy sit just off of the top like that, and it can be a little finicky to get things where you want them to be. This is kind of nice in the fact that you've got a nice big arm that you can work off of. Let's talk about price. Price for the Der8enchtable is just under $300 US, whereas the Streacom is coming in at $200 US. Neither of these are cheap. I can see where the extra money went into for the Der8enchtable. It's hard to say whether I would use all of the features and say that the extra expense is worth it or not. I'd have to kind of use it over a period of time and see how much I would make use of the extra features. From a mechanical standpoint, I still think that the Streacom one is my preferred go-to. Realistically, when it comes down to it though, the original bench table comes with your motherboard. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're using hardware professionally and you swap in and out all the time, something like this or like the Der8enchtable could save you time and really justify the cost. Thank you guys for watching. Should we cover some more hardware like this? It's definitely a unique piece. Let us know in the comments.